What is Qatar's role in Israel-Hamas war, which has been going on since October 7? And in that war, more than 14,000 people have been killed, including 1,400 Israelis, and the rest are Palestinians, 4,000 children, 3,000 women and others, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. So what is Qatar's role? Why diplomacy? And what Qatar has been arguing, constructive engagement. There are four things which we need to take into account about Qatar's role. Qatar is a rich country, is an affluent country with a population of a couple of million people. It has a very high per capita income, GDP. But that country, according to critics, has been labeled as a sponsor of terrorism, that is promoting terrorism. An allegation which is denied by Qatar. So this is one thing, the perception which has emanated or which has emerged in the recent past, that Qatar is involved in patronizing Hamas, Hezbollah, and that has basically raised a question. Then why the world is silent about Qatar's role? The second thing is that it's not only Qatar's diplomatic engagement vis-a-vis Israel and Hamas and the United States for the release of prisoners, those who were abducted by Hamas from southern Israel on October 7, more than 250 people. That is because of Qatar's role, it is because of Qatar's intervention on humanitarian grounds that couple of prisoners, those who were abducted, Israeli nationals and also foreigners, were released by Hamas. So Qatar is confident that it will continue to play a role, a two-pronged role to get the release or to release the Israeli, those who were abducted by the Hamas, and second, for a ceasefire and peace. We have to understand that it is not for the first time that Qatar is playing a role in the Hamas-Israel conflict. It played a role for ceasefire in Gaza in 2014, 2021 and 2022. And it is playing role again. The third thing is that the top leadership of Hamas is based in Doha, operating from their comfort zones. And that leadership of Hamas was allowed by Qatar to live in Doha with the permission of the United States. The US requested Qatar way back in 2012 or 13. And the Fourth thing is that Qatar also played a role for an accord between the United States and the Taliban, AfghanTaliban, way back in 2020, called as the Doha Accord, mediation on the part of Qatar. Qatar is was also involved in helping out the beleaguered regime of the then Egyptian president Mohammed Morsi. Mohammed Morsi, an Islamist, who was elected by the people of Egypt as the president. Qatar was supporting Morsi. But unfortunately, the Egyptian military stepped in, launched a coup against Mohammed Morsi, and his rule came to an end, and he was arrested, and then he died in a prison. And then, of course, Qatar also demonstrated its resilience when several years ago, Egypt, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and UAE broke diplomatic relations with Qatar, believing that Qatar was involved in promoting extremism, that Al Jazeera TV channel, housed in or based in Doha, was propagating against the conservative regimes or pro-American regimes of the Middle East. And not only these four countries, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain broke the diplomatic relations with Qatar, there was also blockade of Qatar, as they were angry with the Qatari Amir, that how dare he had taken an independent position, a neutral stance, and was supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, had supported Mohammed Morsi. But that blockade didn't work. And the resilience of Qatar. And who came to help out Qatar when it was facing the blockade of food and medicines and water and things like that? Saudi Arabia, because the border between Saudi Arabia and Qatar was closed. And supplies from Saudi Arabia, as Qatar being dependent on Saudi supplies, was in trouble. So Turkey and Iran came to the help of Qatar. However, a couple of years ago, these four Arab countries, they reconsidered their stance against Qatar and normalized relations with that, because Qatar is a member of GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council. Furthermore, Qatar is also involved for some sort of mediation between Iran and the US, to the extent that few American nationals were released by Tehran because of the Qatari mediation. The Israeli ambassador to the UN recently was furious against Qatar, and he said that Qatar, under the garb of tolerance and under the garb of constructive engagement and diplomacy, was involved in terrorism, was and is helping Hamas. And action should be taken against Qatar. But on the other hand, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently praised Qatar, that because Qatar has some sort of clout over Hamas, it can help the release of Israeli nationals abducted by Hamas on October 7. But the Israeli ambassador was very clear, and he said to the UN, and he said that prosperous and wealthy, affluent Qatar is using its power in order to support sponsor terrorism in the Middle East. To what extent it is true or is not true is yet to be seen. And then, of course, Qatar also became very famous, and it sponsored, it was the venue of World Cup 2 years ago, football. So Qatar is called as a model. That tiny Gulf state, in view of its infrastructure, modern infrastructure, quality of life of people, has been able to play a pivotal role as far as diplomacy is concerned. But then, once this crisis is over, this Gaza thing is over, then certainly those who have been criticizing Qatar of sponsoring terrorism may take or will take steps against that sheikhdom. Thank you very much.